Change isn't just coming, it's already here. This is Ask for Change podcast, hosted by leadership expert Meridith Elliott Powell. Brings you weekly conversations with leaders and experts who are redefining success in a world of disruption. Let's begin today's journey and turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage.
Let's turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage. I am here with Chandra Lynn, my guest for today. Super excited to have this certified coach, author, and entrepreneur with more than 20 years experience in marketing, leadership, and most importantly, personal growth. Welcome to the show, Chandra.
Thank you so much. It's an incredible honor to be here. I've been following your work, and I have to say I'm in awe just to be in your presence today. So I'm here to be of service.
I think you are going to be the one here enlightening the audience. I love your initiative and your willingness to raise your hand. We're missing that so much in today's marketplace. Chandra reached out to me and said, I think I've got some good information for your guests, and to tell you the truth, you do. So Chandra, you've been hanging around this entrepreneurial world for about 20 years. You're an entrepreneur, you're a leadership expert, but your real gift seems to be in the area of personal and professional development. So I'm just curious, how did you go down that lane? How did you get on that journey?
I think the journey actually was paved for me just early on in life because both of my grandparents were therapists. And they encouraged me to go into therapy, take over their practices and whatnot. And of course, I had to blaze my own trail. So instead of going that route early in life, I got an MBA in marketing when I was 24. And I started working in major market radio in downtown San Francisco. And I was just full on marketing in the music and entertainment industry. That's what, where my passion was in my younger years. But I was always surrounded by very deep, thoughtful, emotional, thinking and kind of just part of my family culture. And I just ultimately, as I got older, I'm 55 now, I decided I have to own my truth and get back to, my roots, which we'll talk about it in the book. But yeah, I decided to get a coaching certification because, I'd already had an MBA. I didn't really feel like going back to school to become a therapist, but I knew that there was a lot that I could do, especially with my work in corporate and in entertainment and marketing.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. I heard years ago that the difference really between a therapist and a coach is a therapist deals a lot with your past, and a coach is really about helping you move forward and deal with and navigate the challenges that you're facing now. So I've always found coaching a little bit more rewarding. Therapy important, but I've always found coaching a little bit more rewarding because you're helping people make that really make that transition and progress. So Chandra, the whole premise of this podcast is to ask for change. It's this whole idea that the marketplace is moving so fast. I mean, people are burned out. They are overwhelmed. They are exhausted. If there ever was a time for your book, it was probably now. So your book is the concept of root to rise. I just love the name of it. I'd love to know where you came up with a concept, where you came up with a phrase, and why that resonated with you and what it would mean to the audience.
Absolutely. Okay. So let me make one comment about coaching and therapy, and then I want to answer this root to rise question. So when I became a certified coach, it was for my own personal growth. I knew that it was going to affect people in my sphere, my relationships, my family and friends. But yet I always kind of knew that I wanted to do more. I think that certification really matters because it can go hand in hand with therapy. A lot of times you dig into this stuff, but then you need to know how to activate it in your day-to-day life. And I do have a platform about certification mattering because, at the time that I got certified, a lot of coaches were coming on the market. It became a thing. And the difference is that a coach will have the ethics training and also know when they're a little bit outside their lane and need to refer people to therapy, because coaches, they're all people that are attracted to being a coach want to help others. It's just innate in what they're wanting to do. And they may start to try to help in ways that maybe they're not fully trained to do. And so a certified coach knows when to, refer somebody off and bring in a professional therapist. So we work really, really well hand in hand. Now, after getting my coaching certification, I was learning, the coaching frameworks, all the tools, all the, tactics and whatnot. And I was showing up to yoga just about every day with some amazing, inspiring teachers, one of which was Kristen DeSange. And Kristen is the one I credit for introducing me to Root to Rise. So I do believe it comes from more of a yoga philosophy, nature-based wisdom kind of modality. And what I did was I, wove in all my coaching tools and my personal life experience to roll it out into a framework. So the book actually does have a methodology. It has a framework. It's a journey, that is a guided journey that you go through. So that's the Root to Rise means that we're rooting into a strong, balanced foundation based on these 5 core root areas that I've identified, which we can talk about. Build, stability in our core, which is like emotional resilience, so that we can rise to our fullest potential instead of expecting ourselves to achieve, wondering why our lives didn't end up, manifesting the way we thought. It allows us an opportunity to go back in our roots, reevaluate, align to our authenticity, build resilience, and re-rise so that we can actually accomplish what we want to based on our adult mentality, not childhood dreams.
So let me ask you this. Do you get there? Like, do you realize that you need to go back to your roots? This is what I'm guessing at, and I'm wondering if I'm right. Like, you turn around, you're 45 years old, you've kind of stuck in this dead end job, you're feeling kind of unhappy with your life and wondering how the heck I turned out this way, or some level of that. Is that like when is the signal that it's time to go back to your roots?
Definitely when you're not fulfilled in life, despite all that you've efforted towards. I think that, we're swimming in a circle of very high achieving people when you're, in doing the kind of work that we're doing, especially, with companies and employees and stuff that are career minded and whatnot, or even if you've put a lot into raising a family and taken that role really seriously. And, there may be a time when you just feel that something's missing or things are falling flat or you're wondering what's next. There's a lot of different things that come up for people, but what I've heard is that there's generally a feeling of something not feeling like enough or feeling off in some way.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And I feel like that's a lot of I think that's a lot of people. What I loved about Root, and I think that it really aligns with what we talk about with Ask for Change, is you've got to go back to your gut intuition and you've got to go back to what you need to be doing. I think when the world gets crazy and it gets uncertain and we get busy, we just do what we think we're supposed to be doing, or we do what other people tell us to do. I actually had a therapist tell me, and it's been such a good litmus. I tend to overschedule myself and I overcommit to things. And she said, every time you make a decision, ask yourself if you're committing because you want to commit. It's something you really want to do, or it's because you're committing because you want to be included or you want acceptance or you want to be liked. Like it's an outside force versus an inside force. And it's been such a powerful litmus for me.
I love it. Yeah. I usually ask people, to stop and ask themselves, where am I in all of this? Because sometimes especially with overwhelm and high achieving people, there's so much you're just kind of in this doer mode and maybe you're also service oriented or, worry about, meeting expectations or serving other people's needs. To be able to have that quiet time to reflect and ask yourself, where am I in this? What I mean by that is actually 3 questions. One is, what do I want? Okay. So a lot of people want things and are telling you they want things and you're, reacting and whatnot, but what do you want? I don't know that everybody actually knows what they want. I think that sometimes we get into, go mode. The second thing is, why do I want that? Where is this coming from? What is that deeper reason? And maybe challenge it a little bit, because something to think about is, well, what needs is that serving? Because if you get to the heart of the why you want it and what needs it's serving, you can have a pretty clear, commitment to that.
Yeah.
And to make that commitment, you have to ask the third question, which is, what are you willing to do about it? You know you want it, you know your why, but we can often get stuck with willingness, because it may mean that we have to get outside of our comfort zone. It may mean that we have to grow in some way, or be vulnerable in some way, or shed something from the past, let go of something we've been attached to, kill some darlings, whatever you want to call it. There's a process that has to go on to really tap into what you're willing to do and how you're willing to show up. And that could be for a partner, for a job, for a new business, for, basically anything that you actually do want.
Let me ask you this, because I have so many, especially with women that I have worked with. I've worked with so many, when you ask them the question of what they want, they will answer by telling you what their kids need, or what their significant others need, or what their parents need, or family members need. But when pushed to really respond to what they need, they seem to have lost that somewhere along the way. What's the process if you don't know what you want? If you haven't thought about yourself in years, what's the process to get there?
So actually, there is a part in this book that talks about connecting to authenticity, and there's a whole journaling experience that people can do with this part of the book. I should back up and say that the first thing I do is I talk about these 5 major root areas of life, so that people even know what areas we're talking about here: is health, career, your relationships to yourself and to a significant other, your friends, and your family. So those are the 5. Then I go into teaching about the 6 human needs that I've adapted from Maslow. They're rooted in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but they've been adapted to be able to address today's, climate and everything. And then there's a needs assessment, so that we understand how we've been meeting our needs in different ways in all these root areas. And that will help with the overwhelm and the life balance, so that we can identify what we should be focusing on. And that's when those questions really do come in, to like, what do I want for in those areas? And then we can look at, what alignments we need to make about ourselves and who we are and what we want and everything at that time, because we really need to know what's been holding us back, and kind of what needs we've been serving along the way at either low levels or high, quality ways. And if we've been stuck, then yes, we can not even know who we are. And so getting back to who we are can make us face a lot of things, because like you mentioned earlier, people are looking to us for their needs to get met, the kids, the relationship, the boss. And we have those identities. And sometimes who we really are may not be something that those people are going to feel comfortable with, and that we need to help align them to as well along the way. So there's a whole journey with identifying this in the book that can help you not only identify it for yourself, but align the people around you.
So what are some of the other steps in the book?
Mm-hmm. So it's really busted into 3 phases. It was really enough to do workshops around just identifying how you're getting your needs met in all the root system. But that became phase 1. I put everything I could into this book, and it just kept growing. It started as an online course, then it went into workshops, and I started to have, case studies layered in. And then I, went into the deepest version of Root to Rise with the book during the pandemic, so that people could go offline and do their personal growth. And so it brought me to the second phase, which is really about emotional mastery and building emotional resilience, and how to deal with things like a pandemic, or things like grief and loss, major life change, like moves, changing jobs, becoming a parent, becoming an empty nester, going through menopause, like all of these things, have a huge impact, and those are points of opportunity for alignment. So the second phase is emotional resilience. I bring up a coaching tool called the emotional triad, which layers into body, mind, and spirit. How are we balancing, our emotions, but how are we also summoning emotions by the meanings that we're attaching to our experience? So, for example, we have more control than we think about where we're at emotionally. If, for example, you're frustrated driving around and people cut you off, you could arrive at a meeting with the person that you're trying to get to and say, oh my God, I am so fucking pissed right now.
Right.
I just had somebody cut me off and I am just livid. That is a very different energy than, man, the world's crazy. I was just cut off and people must be really stressed in their lives. And so I better, help them chill, or, we can attach different energies to the exact same experience.
Yeah.
And we can even summon those emotions by the meaning we attach, the language we attach to explaining those things to ourselves and to others. So that emotional mastery piece, the resilience, is really important for the second phase, how to weather those storms of life. And then the third phase is really the fun part, but you got to get through all that, which is fun but hard. And that the third phase is the rise. This is the authenticity phase of connecting with our true nature and how we want to show up with the fact that this is our life, and YOLO, baby, and where are we going to go from here, and what does that look like? What do we want to be known for? Which basically brings me to the meaning of the cover of the book. People are like, is that a gardening book? No. It's the fruits of our labor. When we're at our peak and we're healthy and we're balanced, we will be offering something back out that's healthy, that's vibrant, that's thrive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. But you can't get there without, I'm assuming, doing the first two steps.
I feel like we can touch it for sure. It's how to hold on to it, because what happens is people love growth. We feel joy when there's progress, when we're accomplishing things, when we're giving, when we're connecting with others, all of these needs. And so what happens is we might reach an experience where we have had that, and then it's hard to hold on to. It could feel elusive. We could even fear losing it. And so it's kind of an opportunity. The book is an opportunity to reassess that regularly so that we can continue to, what I kind of call it's like the metaphor of climbing the mountain. We can only see what we can see from the view that we have. But as we grow, we come to new vistas, and our needs change, and we need to realign to that, so that as we scale that mountain, reaching the top, which really we all know isn't about getting to the top, it's about the journey along the way, that we can have a sense of accomplishment, not then when we get there, but while we're on the journey.
Yeah, I think we really underestimate how important the journey is. Like there's no sweet reward at the top, unless you earned it, unless you went through some of the struggles. It's so much better. Whenever I interview people who've had immense challenges in their life and they're on the other side of them, they wouldn't change their life to have an easier life. They would stay in that. They would very much stay in that same arena. Why do you think people struggle so much with change? Why do you think change is so difficult?
I think it goes back to the human need of security and certainty, that change can feel scary. I think that to some people who have a need for variety and growth, it can be exciting. And we all know those people, and we've seen them in the media and whatnot, or in movies, where they just seem like they have zero fear of change. They're embracing everything and they're thriving and all this stuff. But the reality is that, there could be, for a lot of people, a voice in their head that's kind of telling them to stay safe. It may mean they're stuck, but at least they know what it is, and there's a certainty and a comfort level to it. And so the problem is that if we're not growing, I think like Tony Robbins says, we're dying inside. We do
Yeah.
need to progress. Even people who have a really strong sense of security and needing, they're the ones who stay in the same job forever, or same relationship forever, whether it's serving their needs or not. They don't want to make change. They might stay in the same home. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just something to look at as far as how much certainty and security do you need, and really important, how much variety and change can you allow and to feel comfortable with? Because when you're able to get into a place of allowing for that, that's where the growth happens. And as you're growing, then a natural desire to share that with others comes through, and you start to experience the sixth human need of transcendence and contribution, wanting to give back. And that's what the fruit on the cover of the book is about getting to that point of meeting your needs to a level of where you just want to share and help others.
Do you is not everybody, I guess, reaches that stage?
I hope people experience it. If the challenge with growth is that they might get into a place of doing that and then wondering what's next. And that's when those 3 questions come back in. Okay, so what's next? What do you want? Why do you want it? What are you willing to do about it? Because when things get hard, you have to really know your why. Same with this book launch. There's been really hard moments of being an indie author and doing it myself. And it's great to want to help people, but there are times when you're just like, does the world even want me or need me? And you get all these, things that happen. And so I don't know whether there are people out there that just never get to experience it, but I think they experience it just by, you can have a pet or a plant or something you're nurturing, a child, a business, a relationship. The fact, if you want anything for anyone else at all, then I think you're experiencing transcendence.
Yeah,
You're ready to contribute.
Yeah, I would agree. When somebody else's, happiness or success is more important than yours, you're truly in that element. So speaking of the book, I want you to tell everybody, how they can get the book, how they can find the book, and the special offer that you've got going for the book.
So the most direct way to get the book is to go to glowliving.etsy.com. And it is available on Amazon. I'm always seeking Amazon reviews because it feeds the algorithm and all that. But I took control over direct selling my book because I can offer an experience that's very personalized. First of all, Amazon doesn't give me the customer information, so I can't continue an ongoing dialogue to check in with their journey, to offer anything to them to add value. And so on Etsy, you can use Thrive25 to get a 25% off discount specifically off an author copy. So, I'm not charging more for a signed copy. I'm basically just knocking off 25%. So I think it brings the book from $21.99 to $16.49. And
Wow.
I sign it. I put in a cool keepsake bookmark and a Glow Living sticker, which is my overarching company that helped self-publish the book, and a personal card from me. And they can either have it tell me whether they want it personalized with their name on it, with no name on it, or with as a gift to someone else.
That's fantastic.
So glowliving.etsy.com. There's lots of ways to find the book and whatnot, but that's where I can really offer, more value.
Yeah. We'll definitely put those things in the show notes. I mean, that's such a wonderful deal. So I always close this podcast with 2 questions, and you can answer them in either order. But what advice do you have for our listeners who are facing unprecedented change and challenges in today's marketplace? If they were going to ask for change, what does that look like, and what does that mean to you? And then how do they find you? What social media channels? How do they follow you and learn more about you, your programs, and your mission in life to help people root to rise?
Thank you. Yes. Well, there's lots of advice, and the book is full of advice. So instead I'll give words of encouragement, which is that Change can seem scary, but you're not alone. We're all growing and changing together, and there's resources out there like my book, but also other people's work. I think you just have to find the voice that resonates with you, whether it's, one-on-one therapy, books, online courses. There's so many tools right now. So I just want to encourage people that in one split second decision, you can change the course of your life. You are not stuck. When you ask yourself those 3 questions, it'll help you lead to making some really key decisions for your life. And the minute you make one, you could be on a whole new road. So don't give up. Don't feel like you're never going to get unstuck, or there's no one out there that can understand, because we're all humans, we're having this experience together, and there's lots of resources out there, including my book that's here for you. And my community is at glowliving.com.
Nice. Well, Chandra, you have been an amazing guest. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being on the show. I always appreciate our listeners as well. We'll put all of Chandra's information in the show notes, because all we are here to do, our mission in life at Ask for Change, is to help you turn all of this uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. We'll see you right back here next week.